Good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to the Microsoft and cubesys discussion on mastering adaptive cloud, how Azure Arc simplifies hybrid management for you. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Gadigal land, online and offline, on which we meet today, and pay our respects to our elders, past and present. We're really lucky to be here, and I'd like to acknowledge that for everyone. We're gonna then go to introducing our panel for today. So we've got Chris Hales, who will be in the background. He'll help us answer all the questions. He's the senior cloud consultant at cubesys and the master problem solver for all of our customers. Really, really happy to have him on the panel today. We've got Shabaz Darr, our cubesys newbie. Here straight from the UK just a few weeks ago. We're really, really excited and happy to have him here. Shabaz is a senior cloud consultant at cubesys, and so far from what we know, the MVP for Microsoft as well. He's got a YouTube channel and got thousands and thousands of following. So we're really happy to have you on the panel. And we have Paul Maitre. Paul looks after the Azure strategic engagements in the ANZ SMC corporate side of the Microsoft business. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining the call.
Very happy to have you here. Absolutely. We've got a significant number of attendees and participants, so happy to kick off. I'll get Shabaz to kick this panel discussion off. Thanks.
Thank you, Astha. Welcome, everybody. Just a few ground rules, a few bit of housekeeping. So the discussion is being recorded. Please do use the chat window to ask any questions. Obviously, we've got Chris on hand and myself as well. So we have our experts on hand that are going to answer those questions. And the video content will be sent afterwards via email post event. So as the name of this webinar suggests, it's around this concept of adaptive cloud. So I think the first thing we really want to dive into is what is adaptive cloud, and we've got these pillars that I'd really like to come to you first, Paul, around these pillars to see what your thoughts are around what is adaptive cloud.
Well, thanks, Shabaz. Look, when we're talking to our customers, one of the things we're constantly hearing is the challenges they're facing, and they're facing this because of that multifaceted nature of a modern computing environment. It's our customers navigating these complex landscapes actually lead to fragmented systems, hybrid environments, and it also leads to themes where it's creating a challenge of how are organizations managing these 5 areas. A lot of it is come through organically growing over time as an organization, shifting from this sort of on-prem environment to a cloud environment. Now that's happened over the last 10 years or so. So with that, you're left with how do you manage some of your existing systems and legacy systems with adapting to new and modern technology and cloud environments. So it leads to 3 key areas of those challenges of sprawling systems, which is creating complexity from a management perspective and experience perspective within your organization. Secondly is the siloed nature of some of these, and that actually makes your people and process and information, putting it into a siloed environment that actually struggles to get that pushed out everywhere around the organization that you need. So that constrains your talent, potentially into projects you've got or into the siloed environments that you have. And finally, that leads to things like technical debt. You've looked at how you do some short-term projects to address a business need, but it actually impacts the longer-term strategy, how you want to go to some of these new environments, these new technologies, and to tap onto that. So really, we're looking at how do we bring all this together in a way that simplifies the management of that for our customers. And now Microsoft, we've had to go through this journey as well because we were
Right.
a perpetual on-prem type business, and we've had to navigate that as an organization to get to cloud. So we've come forward with this technology to help bring all these challenges together in a way that we can solve that through a management pane.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we are going to go into a little bit more detail about a few of these pillars that we're calling shortly. But this concept of adaptive cloud, like most concepts, comes with challenges, obviously. And that's what I'd just like to quickly get into as well. There are obviously a number of challenges. We're going to focus on sort of these four for now. In your experience around these sort of four challenges, what have you specifically seen with this adaptive cloud concept?
Well, I touched on a few of them in talking about adaptive cloud then, but these four are primarily where customers talk to us, it's top of mind. Now, it's the complexity. Now, again, I mentioned that above, the complexity that leads to inconsistency, and you want to actually streamline the ability to look at all these environments and capitalize on how do you effectively get some cost savings, be it TCO, retirement of multi-vendor products, but they're getting it to them from a risk perspective as well. So you got regulatory requirements that stipulates you have to manage data a certain way. You have to have security gaps filled in. You're looking at how do you mitigate some of those things, and doing it with the legacy environments you've got. Because in some cases, you think about edge environments like let's call it like CCTV systems. You can't just move that to cloud. So you've got legacy environments that you've got to manage. And so how do you do that within these four environments? So that's primarily what is coming through: complexity, regulation, security risk.
So I've done a lot of work within government in the UK, and the big one there was regulation. The amount of regulatory requirements that some organisations have, like banking, for example, and government, that they have to abide by. And I think that's a challenge that does sometimes prevent organizations from thinking, you know what, can we move some of these workloads to the cloud? But I think with this concept of adaptive cloud, that gets covered. And we're going to go into some more detail about specific solutions. And also as a techie, the inconsistency in tooling is another big one that I've seen, because again, IT teams sometimes have to use multiple tools or multiple platforms. But with this concept of adaptive cloud, that whole issue with inconsistency in tooling does get answered and does get solved.
Yeah. Look, you touched on a few things by touching around the FSI customers from a regulation perspective with your UK example. It's across the board. It's across every industry. Like there's over 21,000 customers who are helped in this manner. And it's ranging from those FSI companies like globally Wells Fargo, ING, through to manufacturers like Ford, or even getting to things like John Deere, who are doing from their tractors, to services companies like EY, Fujitsu, and then getting down to others like in education areas. So there's a large plethora of customers using this to address those four areas.
Yep, 100%. So we talked about the five pillars initially, and I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about those because they're obviously very important to this concept of adaptive cloud. And we've touched on it a few times already with, first of all, the edge computing sort of concept or pillar. And this is like, being able to manage those edge devices, like you said, CCTV cameras. When you talk about manufacturing, you have different sort of nodes and sensors and things like that. And then we have sort of that hybrid cloud. We have organizations that don't just use Microsoft. Shock. They dare to use AWS or Google Cloud sometimes.
That's a recognition from Microsoft that people 100%. Are using different technologies. So 100%. we have to work in with that, and it's unique. Like Azure Arc, it's unique in the market. It plugs 100%. Into all the different clouds, all your different environments to ensure that you get that simplicity of management efficiency. So we're not leading here thinking you got to be with us. We're coming to meet you where you're at with this complexity that has come up over time, and you've got to manage it. So how can we help with those environments? So that's a key thing. We as an organization looking is we meet you where you're at.
And I think it also shows that you understand the industry. The industry is not black and white; it's multicolor. There's like I said, there's GCPs, AWS, there's on-premises, there's private data centers as well. So I think Microsoft have seen that, and we're going to get into a little bit more about specific solutions shortly. But yeah, that multi-cloud area as well is essential to this adaptive cloud. And I think just to clarify, cloud doesn't mean it has to be, with a big vendor. It can be a private cloud. It can be your own data center. It's just not visible to you physically. So it can be number of locations.
And cloud's also sorry, to cut you off, but cloud's also your off-the-shelf SaaS offerings that you go and buy. So it's looking at how are you managing the risk and the management of that in your environment as well.
Yeah, and that's distributed cloud, right? That's exactly what we're talking about there. The distributed cloud where you've got solutions and platforms everywhere. You've got SaaS, you've got on-premises, private cloud, and everything like that. So yeah, I thought it was good to just talk a little bit about the specific pillars that we're talking about and what they mean for this concept of adaptive cloud. And I think you mentioned those siloed teams and distributed sites already a few times already in this conversation. I'd like to just move it on now to a bit more of a technical area and talk about a specific solution. We've mentioned Azure Arc already, and I think this is the solution for me that's enabling this adaptive cloud approach. And again, it touches on a lot of those pillars that we've spoken about. The multi-cloud facet where you can manage resources from not just Azure and Microsoft, but GCP, AWS, from your private cloud, from your on-premises location, but also those edge and IoT devices. We've spoken about manufacturing that have sensors and cameras and whatnot, and being able to not just manage those, but make sure you're getting the best out of those physical devices and those sort of resources is important. And if you have that single panel view, which Azure Arc gives you, it's going to make it a lot more effective and allow you to optimize those resources. And again, this word of AI is coming in, and it's there now, it's here now. Being able to leverage those sort of AI services that a lot of cloud has as well for these sort of hybrid and edge devices. And Azure Arc allows you to do that. There's a lot of, and we're going to touch on some more specific sources and resources that Azure Arc enables. So when we get into specifics around Azure Arc and what that's going to enable for adaptive cloud, if you think about the ecosystem of Azure and Microsoft, there's so many management tools in there, right? We've got Monitor, we've got Log Analytics, we have, from a security perspective, Defender for Cloud. And then when you talk about automation, and being able to use infrastructure as code, we have GitHub and we have, Visual Studio and things like that. And then obviously there's the IoT and the sort of Microsoft Fabric as well. These are all solutions within Microsoft Cloud that Azure Arc facilitates you to use as an organization for these, your other clouds like GCP, AWS, but also your on-premises and private cloud. And that's essentially what Azure Arc is doing in this adaptive cloud conversation. It's the bridge. That's what I like to refer it as. It's that bridge between your Azure solutions, your management solutions, and it's allowing you to use those. And it goes back into this tooling conversation, the tooling conversation that I mentioned earlier, where you're able to rather than having different tools for different platforms and different solutions, you can use one tool for it all. For those Lord of the Rings fans, one ring to manage them all. This is one solution to manage them all, essentially.
This is so cool, and the vendor sprawl concept that Paul keeps mentioning, I think it's worth talking about right here. Yeah,
100%. There's multiple vendors we can see on the right hand side there of this image. It's not just about Windows servers. You've got SQL, you've got Linux, you've got Red Hat, VMware. And these all on their own, they have their own solutions which you can use, and you single, they have their own pane of glass to manage. But if you're an organization that has all those and you can see all the sort of management capabilities within a single pane, that's going to just optimize your outputs. And we're going to touch on this much later on in this whole series, but cost optimization and is a massive thing.
Yes,
Oh man, that's like
I just saw that question pop up, and yes, we were going to mention FinOps, and I'll jump in here in terms of vendor sprawl. Like you've got Microsoft with a cloud offering here, and you've got Microsoft with your potential on-prem perpetual license models and stuff like that. So it's about leveraging what you already have access to. I think about System Center with Arc, the ability to have access to things that are no charge, that are free, to then leverage that to say, how do I reduce this sprawl and give myself a TCO value offering back to go back to the organization, go, I can return this money so that we can do this other project. So there's a big thing from FinOps here around not only freeing up vendor sprawl, but ongoing cost management with this ability.
Fantastic. And I
But
was just going to
that's
say
in later
thank you.
series.
Thank you, Dean, for the question. And if any of you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We want to keep it as engaging as we can.
I just want to say I did not see Dean's question before I mentioned cost optimization. So great minds, Dean, is what I'll say. Great minds think alike. And again, Dean, we're actually going to be going into more detail around cost optimization in the next, let's call it episode within this series. So we're not going to talk too much about it today, but we will be talking about it later on in this series. So again, just want to get more into specific areas around adaptive cloud. And security and compliance, in my opinion, in my experience, at the top of the list as well. Being able to enhance security and compliance, and Azure Arc as that adaptive cloud solution that we're really focusing on, enhances that. It does that by offering that unified policy for all your connected resources. Again, it doesn't matter where they're situated in what cloud. As an organization, you can continuously assess the compliance posture and automate that sort of security management, those what used to be manual tasks. And again, they're going to allow you to, we mentioned regulatory earlier, they're going to allow you to meet those regulatory requirements no matter where those resources reside. And that's very powerful as being able to do that. And it's going to save you time as an admin team. It's going to allow you to focus on enhancing your user experience, which is massively vital. So obviously we have security and compliance, but data services are also very important. Your data, for an organization is really your currency. It's what probably one of your most valuable assets, right? Apart from your employees, probably, is your data. Your IP and so on. And again, with Azure Arc, it has and what enables what we call data services. So as an organization, you can run different workloads like Azure SQL databases and different, not just SQL databases, but different like MariaDB and PostgreSQL, in their own environments. And again, this capability is going to allow consistent data management services as well. And that's another key benefit of having that consistency across your entire environment over your different platforms. And again, Azure Arc is going to facilitate that. Again, we're not getting too technical in this initial discussion, but we are going to have more technical insights as we go along.
I don't want to jump it down too low a layer from this first overarching introduction, but you can then step it up and get SQL managed instances through this, which gives you a whole nother value proposition of managing that data sprawl. But I think that's series number 3.
I think so.
Probably,
yeah,
you're right.
And Azure again has from a data services perspective, Azure has so many powerful solutions incorporated within its portfolio. And again, this is what Azure Arc and Adaptive Cloud is going to allow you to leverage all those services that are, again, PaaS services and services that are hosted in Azure Cloud, that ecosystem. With Azure Arc, it's going to bridge that gap to allow you to use them, including the sort of data services that we've mentioned here. So again, we've mentioned some organizational challenges with Adaptive Cloud, But like any solution, there are challenges in questions, not challenges in organizational challenges. So that's what I want to try and get across here. Customers will obviously have queries around, well, are we able to do this? Are we able to do that? And here are three that we've kind of picked out that I think we felt were probably most common. And again, I'd just like to discuss these with yourself, Paul. Obviously, you have a lot of client engagements just as we do. So, that first one about, organizations don't want to enable the sort of internet on their sort of on-premises prod servers, which, again, as a security-focused techie, I fully agree with. I think with Adaptive Cloud, you would think you need to do that. But with Azure Arc, because of the agents, essentially, it's agent-driven, right? So you need to just deploy an agent to your resource and onboard it into Azure Arc, and that's what facilitates you being able to manage it. So there's no sort of public IP address sharing or anything like that, I don't believe.
Yeah, no, look, there's many ways to go about connecting the Arc servers or the Arc environment. So it doesn't necessarily require you to do direct connections across the board for outgoing and ingoing. So we've got artifacts that once you enable and get visibility of your environments, one of the value points with Arc is you get these business artifacts and best practices coming through to you as well. So you can look at what's your environment and how best to mitigate that. I don't want to enable internet on every on-prem.
I was going to ask, Paul, do we have a customer story that pops up right onto your mind right now? In the recent times?
Look, yeah, there is. We've got over in Asia, and I won't talk locally about the Australian market, but I'll use a couple of banks over in Asia that have recently utilised this. Standard Chartered Bank is one. K Bank in Thailand is another. So they were of that, they had that concern, if I put it, that challenge. So it was addressed, and a lot of it is, hey, what is the best method to connect it and enable this? So again, it's having that flexibility and again adaptiveness around what's going to work in your environment. So when we get to the next series as well, we can go deeper in how do you set this up. So I think that's when you get to my environment is like so, and here's my concerns around connectivity and basically registering devices. So then you can address that. And I think that's where some of the call to action post this is, if anyone wants a deeper dive on how to do this and how to set it up, get in contact with Chris and Shabaz and the guys at cubesys, and they'll take you through that in detail.
Thanks for sharing that.
Excellent. So the other sort of challenge that's quite common with again, especially organizations that haven't quite started that journey to the cloud, is around their information of their servers or their IP going to an Azure region outside of their country. And I suppose with Azure, obviously it's multi-region, and Azure Arc it's again a multi-region service. It's available in multiple regions. So although yes, your information of your servers and being able to manage them, it does need to, Azure Arc does, and Azure does need access to it. But as an organization, you can decide and you can select the region you want to host your sort of services in, and that's the same across all Azure services. They're all multi-region. The newer ones obviously have less regions available, but over time they get more. And Azure Arc's been around for a while now, so it's available in most countries and regions. So again, that's quite an easy, challenging question to answer.
Yeah, and you factor that with our private link, and you can delve into some of the detail around the Azure private link in terms of Microsoft owning and managing that environment. Yeah. So that actually helps with improvement of your security posture as well.
Yeah.
Just noticed another comment from Dane, one of the global data centers. They used Arc to save a customer millions of dollars. So pretty apt to mention here as well.
Excellent. No, that's a massive benefit, isn't it? The amount of financially what it can save you. And again, we will go into more detail around that in our next episode. The last sort
We
of
can't come
challenge.
to that slide fast enough.
I know,
About
I
our
know.
next
We're
series.
baiting everyone.
Dean's ahead. Dean's way ahead of us
Yes.
right now. He's so the final sort of client customer challenge that I've seen more often around Azure Arc specifically is around the administrative overhead of installing agents. However, if you look at Microsoft as an Azure as a platform, when you have things like Defender for Cloud and all these other products, it's all automated. You essentially can automate the deployment of those agents, so it doesn't have to be a manual task in the initial setup. Again, you can get and there's lots of different ways of automating it. You can use policy, or you can use different mechanisms to deploy those agents automatically, so you're not having to do that manual overhead.
Let's not forget the program support that Microsoft gives through our partners like cubesys. So cubesys can come in and look at this and tap into the programs that we have to support our customers through partners like cubesys. So we come in with a lot of things, be it people or investments. So don't hesitate to tap the cubesys team around getting access to some of those and bringing them forward where it makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, we'll come and discuss what your requirements are, and you might have different challenges as an organization. This is just 3 that I've picked off the top because these are probably the most common I've seen. There are a lot more. Let's not beat around the bush. So if you have other challenges, we're happy to sit down with you and discuss those and come up with a solution. Right? That's the aim of it.
Should we go to the benefits bit?
Yeah, so this is the sort of more the benefits around adaptive cloud that I want to touch on. So we've spoken a lot around what it is and what solutions we can use to facilitate it. But again, Paul, I want to discuss some of these with yourself. So that first one's around that consistent policy. We've mentioned inconsistency already as an organizational challenge, but that's one of the benefits adaptive cloud is going to give us, that consistency across the board in enforcing those policies and that compliance for regulations, right?
Yeah, correct. If you look at managing that and you set that up as global or potentially little regions within your environment, you can push out those policy templates and manage that accordingly in a consistent manner, so that Arc becomes that, don't like using this phrase, but that single pane view to manage that compliance element of policy enforcement. So it's bringing it, again, once you've got the visibility of the multi-cloud, multi-hybrid, different environments you've got the visibility, you can then manage compliance around that across all different environments from legacy to new technology. So it does give you efficiency savings, not just on the people side, but it also from a cost perspective. You can retire some of the other tools you've got. So going back to that next series, we'll talk about FinOps. Again, it adds to that value point of retiring some of the multiple systems you have around that. Yeah.
And I suppose the next one, the unified resource management, goes back to the client challenge that we just spoke about, where having to that management overhead, having different tooling, different platforms you're having to manage, and that's where this concept of adaptive cloud brings that benefit, because again, you have that unified view. I don't want to use single pane of glass. I know you don't like it.
Thank you.
That unified view of all your assets you're able to manage in your hybrid environment, right?
Yeah. And think about it from a people perspective as well. You can't, some of these legacy environments or edge areas that you can't get to, and I'm thinking what I said earlier, like CCTVs or manufacturing sites, bringing it all up so that you're getting everyone cloudifying those environments, but it streamlines your training and your people components as well. Because let's be blunt, having multiple clouds, multiple environments is an overhead. So you want to try and streamline that as much as you can that the environments allow you to do. And that's obviously, you look at the resource management, but I'm also thinking about the people management side and the skilling and training. There's value points there.
Exactly, and if you're training on one, if you're giving your staff training on one tool, you're saving that cost on having to give them training on different tools, all these multiple tools, right? So again, it all goes back to that cost saving. Which, funnily enough, these all 4 benefits do, which we'll explain in a minute. So the resource organization with tagging now, although this is just from a governance perspective, is always a massive benefit. But again, with larger organizations, it allows you, I suppose, to manage where you're doing that spend, that sort of cost management as well. Where am I in my massive environment, all in these different clouds? Where am I actually spending the most money? And it allows you to manage that and put alerts on that, so you know where your money's going, right?
Yeah, 100%. If you think about the challenge we have as IT professionals back into a business environment around the rising cost, or where am I spending my money, tagging is an important way to either do internal chargeback cost controls, or more importantly, going, this business app is actually taking up most of the resources, or this department is setting up and using the resources in this manner for this particular activity. And all that whole cost of goods, or cost of selling, cost of doing business, to be able to clearly articulate and tag your resources of which departments are using what, gives you more of a I won't say a power, but it gives you more ability to argue effectively back into your internal CFOs or cost controls around who's doing what.
Yeah, sorry, Dean is trying to rein us in. We're talking about FinOps too much. That's for the next one. He's right.
Oh, right. Okay. He asked the question.
Yeah. And the final one is probably more of a security benefit, which is the role-based access control, right? So, again, Azure and Microsoft Entra have this really good and powerful security mechanism, which is you can essentially, utilize giving people specific permissions based on their job, or based on the tasks that they do daily. And again, being able to utilize that, through this bridge of Azure Arc is a massive benefit as well. And that's going to, sorry, Dean, I'm going to talk about cost. If we're talking about backing up to a cost benefit, the less risk you have in your environment, you're going to have less risk of being, having cyber attacked or being, infiltrated and that sort of stuff. And again, that's going to save you that sort of cost down the long run. It's going to save your organization, the whole piece around your organization looking good. You're secure. You're not in the papers because you've been hacked and stuff like that. So that's again a massive benefit as well. Moving on, Astha, I think this is around the offer that we're giving our
Absolutely.
clients.
Thank you for that elaborate discussion. Thank you for your tips, Dean. We will talk about costs in a minute. I'll let you know when. But for you guys, we've got a special offer. It's limited time only. So we've got up until June for this offer. Comprises of onboarding the first 50 servers for you, all of the introduction to the Azure Arc dashboarding, and we'll also send you the offer with much more detail in an email straight after this call this afternoon. So keep that in mind. We're really excited and happy to help you, and to answer all of your questions, Dean. The next event is cost optimization in adaptive cloud, pretty much an extension of this topic that we talked about today. We're also going to talk about reducing vendor sprawl and maximizing your returns on investment. The date is the 25th of March, same time, 45 minutes session. We'll learn how to consolidate all the tools that these guys spoke about, Shabaz and Paul, reduce licensing costs, and optimize the spending with Azure Arc. So that's a pretty exciting session to host as well. We are actually looking forward to your questions.
Yeah.
So anything that you're curious about, please drop it in the chat. Meanwhile,
So I was going to say, just for people obviously wanting to know more about cost, it's within this adaptive cloud concept. It's such a huge topic. We wouldn't be doing it justice if we just kind of touched on it in like 5 minutes in this talk. We've mentioned it, and there are a lot of cost benefits, but I think we wanted to spend a proper session, which is the next session, which is going to be here. That's the next event on the 25th of March. I think we wanted to do it justice, that whole topic around costs. So we're going to give it its own session. So hopefully you guys can join that.
Yeah, I had a question about the size of the organization. So does it matter if it's a SMB or SMC, and how Azure Arc can help and play? Does that?
There's no limitation of where you can use this, because it is to help any organization anywhere around the world of any size. So that's the beauty of it, is like you can set it up and use it for any instance that you're trying to manage. Be it very large or very small. I think that's the beauty I like of being in the segment I look after within the mid-enterprise area, is the sprawl of different customers that we have to support, from the small, nimble kind of startup environments to the large multinationals. So yeah, there's no limitation here.
And in terms of skills and expertise, when the IT team works on this adaptive cloud projects, they don't need to have the certification and the understanding of all the other vendors and all the other players in the market.
No, you don't. No, I mentioned that earlier around the type of programs that we have, that we pass through our partners to our end customers. So I'd be leaning on those programs through cubesys around bringing in resources, or bringing in some training sessions, or even just going to cubesys themselves and saying, hey, give me a one-on-one detailed view around what is it, how does it look like, what's my skill set needed to complement this and have this being used in our business. So yeah, long-winded answer, but there's minimal knowledge here. If you've got the Azure portal, you're a long way there.
Fantastic. I'm going to wrap up this session with the idea that we're going to discuss more about vendor sprawl, cutting costs, and all of that wonderful stuff in our next session. But thank you to Paul, Shabaz, Chris, for all of your contributions. And yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.